So hopefully we have as many people as possible with us today. You're all very, very welcome. Welcome to our webinar on data protection, expectation versus reality. It's hosted by Unitec IT Solutions, which is ourselves, and Datto. We're honoured to have you all with us. I'm very conscious of your time, so I promise we'll be brief. It will be very informative and extremely interesting. So just a little bit about Unitec IT Solutions. So Unitec was formed in 2009, so we're 12 years in business now. We started off with offices in Clonmel and in Waterford, where two of our directors, Aidan and Ian, are living. We then expanded into South Africa in 2015, the home of our other two directors, Miguel and Louis. So we offer complete IT managed services to many businesses, from SMEs to large companies across the country. Our biggest asset, though, is our people. We're all highly skilled across a spectrum of disciplines, but most importantly, the main motivation is to help our clients to solve problems and to run the businesses without having to worry about IT. We speak plain English, and isn't that what you all want from a business partner? So just a little bit about what we do. So we become your IT department. There's no more worrying about not getting emails or your PC isn't working right. We let you get back to running your business. So we provide 24-hour, 7-day support, on-site support, remote support. We monitor the health of your network, and we proactively manage and look after the health of your network. So we resolve all your IT issues, we find the cause of your problems, we get right into the root of it and make sure that they don't reoccur. The last thing you want is for the same issues coming up again and again all the time. So we work then to keep your IT safe from any cyber threat, which obviously we will come to with the help of our partners later on. So how do we do it? We monitor and we manage your IT network. So we have proactive resolution of your day-to-day issues. We always believe in prevention being better than cure. We've extremely reactive help desk, and their priorities are your priorities. I mean, whatever you need them to do, they will do it. We have unrivaled response times. These are all built into our contracts with our clients, so you know that you're being looked after properly. We have a specialized project team also, and they implement any new solutions that you need to have done. And we also have a technical account manager that's assigned to each one of our clients, and they will sit with you and make sure that your IT is working for you. So what else do we do? I suppose we also look after your GDPR compliance. We purchase all of your hardware, we organize all the setups for that. We complete all of your office upgrades, and we look after cloud migrations. So we obviously work with world leaders in security. We only work with the very, very best. Our partners are the best in the world. So yeah, from SaaS protection, hardware, software, this is to ensure that our clients get the very best from our systems in terms of longevity, reliability, so that we can keep our promises to our clients across all industries in Ireland, as you can see there. So I know that there's many companies in the country that are using managed service providers, but I think that Unitec is the biggest heart, with the highest level of integrity and the best reputation. We communicate very well with our clients, and we build lasting relationships. Once they come aboard, they tend to stay, and it's all about the business partnership. We've got you. So we just wanted to put in a little bit of shameless complimentary words from a great client of ours. So thanks a million, Daniel. We really appreciate the testimonial. So enough about us. We're so excited to host our partners, Datto. We've built a great relationship with them over the last while, and this webinar has been in the works for a long time, long before the unfortunate events of the HSE, which I'm sure you're all aware of. So I suppose, but that's what makes it so timely. Datto provide a complete backup solution. It's called a SaaS solution. It's a term you'll hear mentioned a lot throughout the next few minutes. SaaS means software as a solution, just so you know. And Datto will explain all about how necessary it is to keep your data safe. I suppose to say that data is a valuable commodity is really an understatement. It's vital to keep your information protected. The cost of doing nothing is actually irreparable. So today you will also be shown a live ransomware attack simulation, which is fascinating to watch, scary, but still fascinating. So anyway, enough about us. Without further delay, I'll hand you over to Jamie. If you have any questions at all, pop them in the chat or drop us a line and we'll come back to you. So thanks a million for listening, and over to you, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Eva. Thank you for inviting us here today. So yeah, we're here in partnership with Unitec today to really talk around SaaS protection, what that is, and really give you some information about why it's needed today. So by way and start of a little bit of an introduction, so my name is Jamie Emmett. I'm a senior product specialist here for Datto in EMEA, particularly for our SaaS protection product. And with me will be joining Sarah Herbert, who's going to be showing us through a live ransomware attack as well, and how we can help you mitigate any of the kind of backlash and events that can come out of that. So in terms of way of agenda, what I'm looking to really cover with everyone here today is starting off really looking at the market of SaaS data, what's happening out there in the wider scope, particularly in the last few years. Is that data vulnerable that you have living in these applications? Why do you need to back up that cloud data? And really, where does the responsibility lie around that data as well? So that's what we're going to be looking to cover. Before I jump straight in though, for those of you that don't know around Datto or who we are, just a few notes around us. So we work with what we call the managed service provider channel. So like Unitec, who manage and look after and enable your IT, we work with our partners that do the same for small to medium businesses globally. And around about 18,000 managed service providers we work with. So what we're doing as part of today's presentation is sharing some of the information that we get back from surveys from our partners about really what's happening out in the world there. Beyond that, we are a technology company that offer a portfolio of solutions that really underpin the likes of Unitec's services that they are able to provide you. And we have one of the largest private cloud environments for business and business critical data. And again, you know, we're going to be sharing some of the insights that we've learned along the way from working with the small to medium businesses out there. So starting off, we're going to have a look today at the evolution of SaaS data. That's where we're going to start with. Where does your critical data really live today? And I think it's fair to say it starts from the fact that actually migrations to the cloud are moving faster than ever. That's particularly evident over the last year, and we will come to talk about that. But actually, even going beyond a year ago, we were already seeing the SaaS applications were becoming a new standard for small to medium businesses. We saw that market was growing at a rapid rate. Even a year ago, we could look at the likes of Google Drive hitting over 1 billion users. And certainly Microsoft was getting much more aggressive about pushing people into the cloud, and in many instances actually forcing you to do so. But it's by no ways a bad thing. There's a lot to be gained from using the likes of Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. We know that, in fact, small businesses that are taking advantage of these platforms tend to be growing just shy of 20% faster than their counterparts that don't. And at this point, it's just table stakes. It makes absolute sense to see that happening. Moving to the cloud improves efficiencies of running your business. It gives the ability to collaborate across distances, keep your business agile, and make sure that your teams are able to work much more effectively together and collaboratively. And really, this is where we've seen the market moving. And for some, this has been a scary change. This is definitely not something that we should be shying away from, and something that Unitec can certainly support you through that journey. So again, I wanted to share some information around the market to start with and what's been happening with SaaS data. And we can see this here is from Gartner. And they actually predict by the end of this year, the software as a service market is actually going to have hit 113 billion. The main point to this here is it's doubled in the last few years in terms of the market and people using these platforms. In fact, they're predicting again that just shy of 80% of the small and medium businesses are going to be solely running their business on these kind of platforms within the next year or so. Now, we can actually see some evidence backing that up already, again, from what we've seen in the market. Microsoft Teams, for example, just within a 4-month period last year alone, grew by just shy of 900%, overtaking the likes of Zoom and such. And that's no big surprise. With the COVID-19 pandemic, the growth has continued at a higher rate than ever. We've been forced, our hands have been forced to really adopt these platforms, particularly applications like Teams, to be able to still communicate with our colleagues and your employees and keep the business running. Now, what we've seen is a consequence of that. As your employees have had the likes of Teams at the end of their fingertips, they've also had SharePoint, OneDrive, etc. Added to their disposal. And as a result, we're seeing much more data either traversing through these platforms now, or just outright living there, maybe even more than you were aware of. And is there a preparation that we've done around that? We're seeing more data, business critical data moving into these platforms. Have we done as good a job at looking at what's happening to that data? The honest answer is, in most cases, no. We've been focused on actually keeping the businesses running and keeping some agility through a challenging time. So adopting these tools has become a necessity in today's remote world. And even if you were a customer that were using Microsoft 365 before, the chances are you're much heavier users across your business today. So we know more and more data is moving into these platforms, but is that data vulnerable to permanent downtime and data loss? And how does that data loss come to be? How do these events occur in terms of permanent data deletion? So we're going to take a look through some of that now for you. So again, we're looking here at another Gartner report, and they were predicting by 70% of organizations by the end of next year will have suffered from permanent data loss and downtime events. Now that's quite a big statistic, and it follows through from what we've seen from the IDC here, where actually they're seeing that less than a quarter of customers using these platforms have a third-party backup solution in place today. In fact, the majority are using the native kind of inbuilt offerings, of which there are challenges, and we'll come to talk to that as well. Now, IDC themselves have actually gone as far as suggesting that you should really be bringing a third-party backup solution to the table to make sure if you do suffer a data loss event, you are able to recover from that. Now, the main message here is really that all data is at risk. I think as an industry in the IT world, we've done a good job of encouraging, when we thought of our server-based data, to have a cloud version of that data, a secondary copy. And I think there's brought a bit of confusion now. We've started to move the primary data into the cloud. Unfortunately, that doesn't cover it. We still need to look at having a secondary copy. And although this is where we've seen the market moving, believe it or not, the likes of Microsoft and Google are not really there to protect your data. And I think this is one of the number one big misconceptions that is actually out there today. And it's one that you'd be easily forgiven for assuming, because a lot of people assume, well, if my data's with Microsoft or Google, what could possibly go wrong? They're huge brands, huge businesses. Actually, it's not necessarily some of the focus they're doing. And we've seen that moving to cloud reduces more risks in terms of not giving the same levels of defense as your historic on-premise server-based data. Now, the reality is that especially SaaS data is vulnerable as a result of that, because all the threats we know on our traditional storing of data are present in the cloud as well. So whether that be human error, malicious deletions, misconfigured workflows, ransomware, malware attacks, they're actually present in these cloud environments as they are on our traditional server space as well. And when these problems come up, who are you going to call? You're going to want to call Unitec to make sure that they're able to help you. Hence why they put together this webinar today, to make sure that you're aware of what you need to protect yourself, so they can best suit and furnish you in that respect. So again, let's take a look at some of the reasons that data loss occurs. So unsurprisingly, your employees are one of the biggest reasons that data loss events occur. So whether that's accidental deletion, forgetting to save, malicious deletion, or clicking that link being the inception point for a malware attack, that is also present in these cloud environments. And in fact, it goes so far as seeing here that within the last few years, 90% of data breaches have come from human error. And that's quite a scary thought, as if you don't have a third-party solution in today to back up that data, these end users that are touching the data you obviously value are touching the sole copy, which meaning it's really at their disposal. And if mistakes happen, that's potentially it for that piece of data being able to get it back. Now, again, this is a particularly scary one. I think it's always been evident that it's detrimental to a business to lose data. But as we can see here, 70% of the small businesses experiencing large data loss actually go out of business inside of a year. It shows that it actually can be a catastrophic event. Now, this is quite a sweeping statement. So again, I want to actually explore this. How can this actually be? What does that actually look like to be a reason to potentially be out of business? And it really comes down to the classic and age-old time and money. So again, looking at the average with speaking to the MSP community, data recovery can take on average 18.5 hours. Now, if we start to look at what the cost of downtime or event of data loss can be, you're looking at over €6,000 or over $500,000 if you're a larger enterprise business, and that's on a per hour basis. So it really starts to stack up. Now, the other part is these kind of equations here work out cost of downtime, not being able to work or trying to get data back. What it doesn't include is then things like ransomware attacks, which you then have to add an additional cost, being the actual ransom. And again, hopefully no one on the call today has had to experience that, but they are painful events. And you know, the ransoms can be anywhere from a couple of €1,000 all the way through to $500,000 as well, depending on how much data they've managed to actually capture of yours. So again, it can be an exponential cost growth from these kind of attacks. Unsurprisingly, just under 6% of the partners that we work with have reported that they've actually seen an increase of ransomware attacks during the COVID-19. And actually this was, you know, said throughout various BBC reports and such. At the beginning of last year, we're reporting that it was coming through from a cybersecurity perspective. Ransomware was on the rise because they were taking advantage that everyone was moving to these cloud environments and not necessarily protected in the same way. Again, over half of our partners we work with have reported that their customers, the small to medium businesses out there, have seen shifting workloads to, you know, cloud and increased security vulnerabilities a lot. So we're starting to see the results come through from this fast-paced adoption, not necessarily with the same enthusiasm of protecting that data. Now, all we need to look at is, you know, I don't want to dwell too much on it, but the HSE attack in the last few weeks, that's a high-profile attack. And it's obviously hit the news and really, I guess, shone a light on a lot of these areas and the risks that come from it. But actually, the largest kind of economic impact comes from attacks that are on small to medium businesses out there. And it's really where cyber criminals see themselves making money. They now know that more of your data is going there, which is important to them, because if they can capture that, it's going to hurt you and you're going to want to pay them some money. And they're also seeing that it's a far less protected area of your business. So we're seeing more threats that start to be developed at attacking this cloud data. So moving on to there, why do we need to, you know, protect this application? I think we've really covered a lot of it already. The number one cause for permanent data loss is your employees. It's the users of the applications. Recycle bin invitations, which is the native piece there, they're just not really enough, whether it's because you're tied into compliance that you have to adhere to, or even just from a general usage. A lot of data loss events don't get picked up until 122 days statistically. So recycle bins being a 90-day period, again, doesn't cut it. Have you had a good story about, you know, recovering data natively as well? I'm yet to hear one. Unfortunately, it can be a challenging process, and that's even if you do end up getting your data back from some of these native tools. So ultimately, critical data is moving to these applications. Who else is knowing? The cyber criminals. They're noticing this as well. So we know that there's a lot of data moving into these platforms. We know that there are threats and risks that are already here and growing. Who's responsible for that data? And I think, again, this is really something that's worth spending a little minute on. So we're going to take a look here. So this is what Microsoft called the responsibility model, the shared responsibility model. And it's really what accounts for what they are there to do and what they offer as part of their service, and what falls down to you. So as we can see on the left-hand side there, what Microsoft and the Google is the same as well, are responsible for is hardware failure, software failure, natural disaster, power outage. What does that equate to? Uptime of the platform. That's what they really mean there. They're responsible for making sure that you can access these platforms at any given moment. And even themselves have had a few challenges over the last 6 months, even on there. But all in all, they've done a really good job and have a really good service for that piece. Now, looking over to the right, what falls under your responsibility as the user of their platform is human error, programmatic errors, malicious insiders, external threats, malware attacks. Unfortunately, as we've already discussed, all the areas we see data loss events actually occur. So all of the reasons that data loss occurs falls down to your responsibility to make sure that you're protected and able to keep moving if that does occur. Now, Microsoft actually go a step further, and they put this in their SLA as well, their service level agreement. And I think the key point here is that bottom statement there. We recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on services or store using third-party applications and services like Datto SaaS protection with Unitec. So they're actually telling you themselves to be able to bring a solution to make sure that your data is backed up and that you're able to retrieve it if any of these events take place. And that's really where it introduces what Datto SaaS protection is here to help with. Ultimately, even cloud data needs backups. Without it, there's risk of data loss. And SaaS protection is that at its basis form. It's an insurance policy against these data loss events. But again, we'll have a look at this much more in terms of being a protection, last level of defense against certain attacks as well. So a little bit more detail what Datto SaaS protection offers to combat some of these challenges that we've looked at. It's automatically going to back up your data 3 times a day. It has flexible retention options to match your requirements. You can see there one-click restore, being able to export the data to PST as well, all this lovely stuff. But I think what's key on this slide here in particular is what is it going to cover? What is it going to back up? And we can see whether it's Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, we're really looking to cover all the data. So for Microsoft 365, which I think is probably the highest usage in Europe, would be Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and Tasks, essentially everywhere where your key data is going to be residing. Now, again, what does that actually equate to beyond what the solution is really doing? What does it mean to your business? It's the ability to be able to recover easily, quickly, back from the cloud, regardless of the cause of these data loss events. It's also a way of managing potential costs with these platforms. If you have had people on furlough, or if you have perhaps people that are contractors that come in and out of the business, you may not want to keep paying for their license in the short term, but you don't want to also lose all the data. There's a risk of losing data if you delete a user as well. So you can keep backups in place and actually use that as a management cost to be able to manage that piece as well. And of course, with the time you mentioned with ransomware at the moment, and it's prolific headline grabbing, being able to have that last line of defense, to be able to recover from a point in time before that ransomware attack infected your data, to be able to essentially roll back to before it hit. That's the last line of defense and definite place that you need to be should you ever be a victim of a ransomware attack. So being able to roll back in that regard. Now, where is your data going? So we have the Datto cloud. It backs up. So it's a cloud-to-cloud platform, straight out of these cloud platforms into the Datto cloud. And it's a purpose-built cloud for backup and recovery. In fact, we have over an exabyte of business-critical data for small to medium businesses now, and over 10,000 restores happening daily, particularly in this area. Now, in terms of where is that data sat, we have global data centers, and you do have the option to choose where from. In terms of Europe as a whole, we have 2 data centers of which you can choose. We have one in the UK, and we have one in Munich as well in Germany, both GDPR compliant, and an option to choose from that. Again, how are you able to consume this as a service as well? Well, incredibly easily is the answer, and predictably. This isn't based on data growth, which you might have heard from other areas, and a lot of cloud services are now built around how much data you've got, and your bill appropriates that. This is built per model uses, or per user model, I should say, usage. So it's very predictable and easy for you to understand your costs around this, because it's tied into 1 year of retention or infinite, and a per user based cost attached to that. So incredibly easy to be able to manage that, and predictable for your future as well. So what are the options? So the first one is really, as most customers have been doing today of these platforms, which is to do nothing, which for all the reasons we've talked about already today, just isn't really going to cut it in this kind of ever-growing threat landscape. The other one is to work with limited native recovery features, but there's challenges with that. It's not automated, it's time consuming. We don't have a second copy of the data, and that in itself is a problem, because it means the entire data set is at the disposal of your employees today. And really that ties into the fact that there's a lack of accountability of whose responsibility this falls down to. Well, the third option is to regain control of the third-party solution and the managed service that Unitec offer to make sure that you are protected. So that's almost it for me today. I'll be hanging around for some questions towards the end as well, and we'll be moving over to Sarah in a second to actually see a live ransomware demo. But I just wanted to finish on a few key takeaways. So really, whether you know it or not, more and more of your critical data is moving into the cloud now. It starts with Teams and it's spread out very quickly. So we've seen data growth in these platforms grow at an exponential rate. The risks to data are already here. They followed us from all the challenges we've had on our on-premise data sets, but they're now growing. They're a targeted area for the cyber criminal side as well. And really, SaaS protection isn't an optional extra anymore. It's part of your go-to-cloud strategy. It should be part of your strategy to make sure that you're able to use these tools incredibly well without being able to slow you down from downtime events and data loss events, and make sure that actually you're able to do it easily and comfortably. And of course, speak to Unitec today about protecting yourself. What does it look like for your business in terms of a SaaS protection and protecting against that data loss events? So that's it from myself. I think Sarah's going to take over the screens shortly, and she's going to show us through actually a ransomware demo. So she's going to show us through a screen what happens when ransomware hits, how that can actually spread into a cloud environment, and how we can help you recover with that side as well. So Sarah, you're going to take over the screen and
absolutely. let me know. I think that's taken over now.
You have indeed. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good. We're off to a good start then. Thank you, Jamie. So yeah, hello everyone. Thank you again for joining us. I know we've had lots of welcomes and thank yous already. So my name is Sarah. I'm part of the solutions engineering team at Datto. And I'm going to be walking you through what it would look like if you or an employee at your company going about their day-to-day accidentally stumbles into some ransomware. So yeah, what does this look like in real terms? What actually happens in a situation where someone clicks on something that they really probably shouldn't have, but ultimately that's the sort of purpose of good ransomware. You're not going to realize necessarily that it's something you shouldn't click on. So in these situations, someone has obviously tried to maliciously interfere with your day-to-day activities. So what I've got here is just a standard Windows machine. This is a Windows machine that's owned by an employee named Walter Richards, and Walter Richards works for an organization called Richmond Gardens. And then Richmond Gardens is actually a customer of Unitec. So Richmond Gardens have Datto SaaS protection enabled for their Microsoft 365 domain. Now, Walter is actually on his way to a meeting with Unitec today, where he's planning on presenting some information around how Richmond Gardens is changing their business model over the coming months. And he wants to talk about, what their managed service needs are and what they will be in the future. So Walter here has on his machine, written his documents, standard place where you'd save things, Unitec presentation. This is a pretty critical document. Walter's, kind of rushing about a bit, about to, jump onto a train and head for the meeting to go and present this to the team at Unitec. But just before we jumped onto this simulated demo here, Walter's got a phone call from one of his coworkers, Nick. And Nick said on the phone, "Oh, you're never going to guess what. I just got this document sent over. It has everyone's payroll, bonus information, the whole company. You've got to check it out. Like crazy. I sent it over by email." Great. Okay. So Walter's like, I got to get going. I have stuff to do. I have this presentation, but he's gone ahead and downloaded that file that Nick sent over. So I've got this file here, purchasing and billing, nice little code name so that nobody knows kind of what's going on with this. Walter's human. Walter, of course, wants to know what everybody is getting paid and where he stands amongst his colleagues. So he says, let's check it out. So clicks on it, opens up the file, curiosity gets the better of him really. So he's going to go in there and check this out. Hopefully. Oh, we're having some issues opening that today. There we go. Payroll. Well, this is a bit weird actually. So Walter had in his head, oh, this will just give me like a nice chart, all the employees, how much money they make. Well, this looks more complicated than what he was expecting. So, okay. So he's like, well, I don't have time for this now. I've got to jump on the train. I'll come back and look at this later. Okay. So he closes out of that, much as you would, and then he sees, okay, what's happened? Well, this looks different. .ecc, I don't, what is that? You know, he's a little bit confused, tries to open up his presentation, it won't open. What, like, okay, Walter's a little bit scared now. So he sees, obviously, things are happening here. What's going on? Big red box. Now panic has set in. So when Walter clicked on, you know, the nosy spreadsheet there about everyone's salaries and bonuses, what's happened is he's accidentally executed what we call a ransomware payload. So this is a ransomware payload called CryptoLocker. And what this has done is actually cascaded that application through the critical systems in the back end of his Windows machine and encrypted everything. It's then come up with this box here that Walter needs to pay the equivalent of 1 Bitcoin to unlock his data, which at the moment is somewhere around 30,000 euros. So not the kind of money that Walter has sitting around in his bank account. So he's looking at this and scary. Like, what does this even mean? In order to decrypt the files, you have to click on this link and go to some stuff. Your key will be destroyed. You know, what does he do? So what we're also seeing, you know, kind of from the global perspective is these types of infections are significantly more sophisticated nowadays. So if you look at examples like the 2017 WannaCry attack on the NHS in England, we saw them not only infecting individual machines like Walter's workstation here, but in that instance, cascading through 175,000 other devices. Or in your active news there with the HSE, the estimates are that the current ransomware attack has affected upwards of 80,000 devices across the country. So this is really serious and can be really serious for your network. Now, in a situation where your organization is infected with something similar, one individual opens something that they shouldn't, and it cascades through, you know, what would actually happen? How is that going to affect your business? And do you have the proper preparedness in place to ensure that you can get back to production as quickly as possible? Now, unfortunately, what we've also got here is an automatic sync happening. So most Microsoft users have this. If they're downloading files or saving any files to their desktop, anything like that, you have the OneDrive automatic sync on in the background so that your files are syncing properly up to the cloud and you have those copies that you probably assume are safe. But as all of these files have been encrypted with the ransomware payload, they've also synced up to the cloud. So if I actually pop through here, so I'm in Walter's office account here, and Walter's going to have the same idea. Okay, can get my presentation from the cloud. You know, let's go try that. So he opens up here. Okay, let's see here. Oh, no, I can't get my presentation there either. All of these infected files have all synced back up. Can we still see my screen, Jamie? Maybe you can confirm for me. I just got a notification that it was paused, so.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay. Sorry, just making sure there. I'm not sure why Zoom is telling us that, so. Fantastic, okay. So from this point, what happens? What is Walter gonna do? He's going to call the team at Unitec. Simple as that. He's going to call them up and say, guys, you know, everything is gone. I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to kind of access my files. You know, what do I do? You know, how do I get the copy of those slides? I've got my train booked. I've got to catch that train. I need to come to your office even and do the presentation. And the team at Unitec is going to say, no problem, Walter, leave it with us. Just give us a couple of seconds. What we'll do is we'll get you that presentation file back, and then we'll work on fixing everything in the back end for you. Jamie, sorry to bother you again. Can you see the SaaS protection page when I switch the screens there?
You're currently on your first screen with the ransomware up.
Okay, so that's the key here. So something has gone on with the screen share. It's not letting me show the right screen here. So let me just pop that over here.
Now we can see. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you. So here, I've put on a different hat, and now I'm one of the technical team members at Unitec here, and I'm going to try to get Walter back his file right away. So when I come in here to do that, I'm going to go into OneDrive, and I'm going to pop down into Walter, because we know that's where the file was that he's looking for. And I'm going to go into his documents. And look here, I have a copy of that presentation. So I'm going to quickly hit restore on that. I'm going to send that data back to Walter. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll pop right back into Walter's view. So this should be Walter's OneDrive here. And Walter's perspective, right in the cloud, he's going to have a copy of that presentation file directly right through, and he has access to this. And you can see, based on the previous backup that SaaS Protection has taken, this presentation file that Walter needs for his data today, perfect, good to go, not encrypted, not a .ecc file, nothing like that. So from this perspective, Walter's kind of good to go. He knows he can get on the train and carry on with his day. What's going to happen from here is the team at Unitec is going to go ahead and do some things in the back end on their side of things in order to rebuild the server infrastructure, fail back all the documentation from Datto SaaS Protection so that not only does Walter have just this presentation file, but he has all of his documents back the way that they were prior to the ransomware attack. And the team at Unitec would help you get your whole business back to production if the ransomware has infected the network or spread through any of the other data that's sensitive that you need. So the goal obviously is to use the tools to get back up and running as quick as possible after the ransomware infection. That's all from me. I think I'm going to turn back to Jamie and to Eva now.
Hi, everybody. That was absolutely fascinating. Oh my God, Sarah, it's so scary, isn't it, when you consider what can happen? But, at least with that kind of protection, things can be retrieved. Just wanted to put it out to questions. If anybody has any questions that they want to ask, I have a few here that have come in, probably aimed at Jamie, if that's okay, Jamie. How long do you hold on to my data for? I'm in a regulated industry and I need to hold on to data for a number of years.
Yeah, then that's perfectly fine. So again, we offer in terms of the consumption model on a per user basis, but then that comes with two options within itself, which is purely and simply for what is called time-based retention, or also known as a year of retention, or infinite, which essentially does what it says on the tin. So as long as the subscription is active, the data will be kept on an infinite cycle. And you don't have to have it infinite. You can set it within a parameter inside of that, but if you've got multiple years you want to do it, infinite is the option for you, and you'll be covered in that respect.
Okay. Another question that I have here is, what is the frequency of backup?
So again, there is an automatic setup part of this that Unitec would be able to configure for you. But once they've done so, it would back up or roughly on about an 8-hour schedule, so 3 times a day. What you can do if you have the need, there can be additional manual backups that can be, I guess, fired up. But on a standard basis, 3 backups a day is the schedule that it runs on.
Okay. So what happens if somebody has a lot of joiners and leavers, if there's a high staff turnover? How is that handled then?
So it's quite an interesting point with that, because I guess it's similar to when I was mentioning around, the year we've had with people going on furlough, or if you have contractors as well. Another big reason for data loss events is actually when a user of your systems in your business leaves. Sometimes that user is requested to be shut off. And what happens with that is data loss. Because if you get rid of a user, you also get rid of all their data. Microsoft's very clear with deprovisioned users that if you deactivate a user, all the data associated with that user is also gone. So you're left with a choice, which is to keep paying for that user that's no longer in the business, or to start to do a data migration or deletion of data, which within itself can be time consuming or costly. So if you're using Datto SaaS protection example, the comparative cost of user basis is far lower than a Microsoft package user. So it's a way to deprovision the user, but keep the data that they've had in the Datto SaaS protection solution. So it can be a real cost saving there, and a much more lower, I guess, threshold that you need to be looking at for your total spend.
Another question then, is it possible that the backup could get encrypted if the ransomware is not caught on time?
So no, but I'm going to let Sarah go into detail how that works.
So the way that the backup snapshots work is they are point-in-time snapshots. So effectively, we could do a point-in-time snapshot for that particular segment where the files would be encrypted. However, the snapshots are all independent of each other. So even if that were to happen, there's no way for any type of infection to then spread through previous snapshots and ruin the backup chains or history or anything like that. And you would always have those previous snapshots to roll back to. So in theory, at most, your recovery point that you'd be rolling back to is about 8 hours of data loss is kind of the most that you'd ever have going backwards.
And I suppose in the situation that you would be left in 8 hours is okay under the circumstances.
A whole lot better than losing all your data, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So just one other question: what's involved in getting this turned on and set up, and what's involved for the clients?
So really, that's where Unitec are going to come in here. Now, the setup process is something that's relatively low touch, especially for you as a customer. Unitec would take your admin credentials to set up what's called an API connection, so just getting the two clouds to talk to each other, and then they'll configure it to set it up as you require. But in terms of the effort required on your side, it would be supplying the admin credentials, and in all likelihood Unitec probably already have that if they're helping you manage your Microsoft 365 domain or Google Workspace. So relatively little, just a conversation, and then asking for it to be turned on, I guess, and looking at what that looks like for you as part of your service with Unitec. So relatively low touch in that regard.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I think that's kind of all of the questions that we had. It was a absolutely fascinating insight into what can happen and how it can actually be avoided. Thank you so much to Jamie and to Sarah for coming on with us today. And if there's any questions that anybody has, by all means come on board and send us an email or get in touch, and we'll hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks a million. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.